One man, no communication, 30 days alone in the frozen wilderness. So picture this. For 6 summers, Ethan Cole worked as a fire lookout at the Iron Ridge Tower, right? It's about 50 miles from the nearest town. His job was pretty straightforward. Watch for smoke, report wildfires, protect the forest. But when a massive, unexpected early October snowfall hit, 2 weeks before anyone even saw it coming, well, that peaceful mountain silence turned deadly in a heartbeat. The weather shifted with absolutely zero warning. I mean, the wind just started howling, thunder is rolling across the peaks, and the rain turned vicious. And just like that, the only access road down the mountain wiped out. Completely buried under a massive landslide. Even the main bridge connecting to the valley below just collapsed. So Ethan wasn't just, stuck for the afternoon. Every single trail down had vanished under fallen trees and mud. When that storm destroyed every road off the mountain, one man was left completely alone, and literally no one knew if he was still alive. And this is where the stakes get unbelievably high. Right as the storm is hitting its absolute peak, Ethan's radio crackles to life. It's headquarters calling him. They say, "Ethan, major storm, evacuate." But before he can even process what they're saying, static just swallows the rest of the message. A few seconds later, lightning strikes somewhere below him. The power fails and the radio goes completely dead. The world has essentially forgotten him. So the big question we're exploring in today's Explainer is, will he survive against these impossible odds, or will rescuers arrive too late? Let's get into section 1, routine versus reality, and how the isolation actually begins. Now, at first, Ethan wasn't in total panic mode. He had a safe, sturdy tower, a warm wood stove, his rainwater tanks were full, and he had emergency food that was supposed to last for several weeks. He figured, hey, someone is gonna come for me soon, right? But as the storm just refused to let up day after day, that heavy rain turned into relentless snow. Cloud cover swallowed the mountain peaks, completely grounding all rescue helicopters. And very quickly, that cozy expectation turned into a terrifying reality. He was trapped in a freezing prison of snow, forcing him into some incredibly extreme rationing. To really wrap your head around what Ethan was dealing with, you have to picture the sheer violence of this weather. The winds spiked from a standard 20 miles per hour to nearly 80 miles per hour. Think about what that sounds like when you're sitting in a tiny wooden box perched on top of a mountain. The trees outside were literally bending like blades of grass. The whole cabin was creaking and groaning under the pressure. This wasn't just a heavy snowstorm, it was a total sensory nightmare trapping him inside. Which brings us to section 2, starvation, cold, and predators. Okay, so by day 10, it was painfully clear that rescue was not coming anytime soon. His canned food was running dangerously low, so he had to start a drastic rationing diet. And I mean drastic. Breakfast, just half of a granola bar. Lunch was literally a single handful of dried beans. And dinner? Dinner was nothing but hot water flavored with a tiny bit of powdered soup. That's it. Hunger wasn't just a passing feeling anymore, it became this constant, agonizing companion. His body was burning so many calories just trying to stay warm, and he was feeding it practically nothing. But honestly, the hunger was only half the problem. Because, as it turns out, he wasn't the only one starving on that mountain. Without electricity, the pitch-black nights were already terrifying. Then, one morning, Ethan wakes up and finds enormous bear tracks circling the lookout tower. A hungry black bear had actually smelled his meager food supplies. And for several nights in a row, this bear came back. Just imagine this for a second. You're freezing, you're starving, completely cut off from the world, and you can hear the heavy, deliberate scratching of claws against the thin wooden walls of your cabin. You can hear a massive animal physically pushing against your only door, hunting for a way inside. Ethan spent those nights sitting wide awake in the dark, gripping a flare gun, just waiting for the door to give way. Eventually, thankfully, the bear gave up and disappeared. But the sheer terror of those nights definitely stuck with him. Meanwhile, winter was really tightening its grip on Iron Ridge. The snow kept piling up until it reached nearly 4 feet deep. The entire mountain was buried, transforming the landscape into this unrecognizable frozen wasteland. Suddenly, just stepping outside the door meant risking severe frostbite. And in any survival situation, the environment is just waiting for you to make one tiny mistake. One afternoon, Ethan is out there desperately trying to collect firewood so he doesn't freeze to death, and he slips. His axe flies out of his hands and vanishes deep into the snowpack. But way worse than losing his tool, his ankle twists violently. Pain just shoots up his leg. So now he's trapped, starving, freezing, and injured. But this is where you really see the human spirit kick in. He took some torn cloth, wrapped his injured ankle tight, and actually forced himself back to work. Because out there, giving up simply wasn't an option. Let's move to section 3, breaking the mind and the heavy weight of silence. If we look at his timeline, it really puts the sheer duration of this isolation into perspective. The road is destroyed on day 1, he starts extreme rationing on day 10. And it was right around the 3-week mark, day 21, that the reality of his situation truly began to break his mind. The silence of the snow-covered mountain wasn't peaceful anymore, it was deafening. It was completely unbearable. So, how exactly do you survive when your own mind starts turning against you? Ethan had to fight tooth and nail for his sanity. He started talking out loud just so he could hear the sound of a human voice. He would dig deep into his memory, recounting old camping trips with his dad, or imagining these long, detailed conversations with his friends. Some evenings, he'd just laugh out loud to himself. Other evenings, he completely broke down and cried. And to keep himself grounded in reality, he took a piece of charcoal and started marking each passing day on the cabin wall. 21 marks, 22, 23. He began treating every single day he survived as a massive, hard-fought victory. 30 days. That is 1 full month of waking up freezing, starving, and entirely cut off from civilization. The world had seemingly forgotten he existed, and the mental fortitude required to simply keep going under those conditions is just staggering to think about. Which leads us to section 4, a desperate final hope. One freezing morning, Ethan drags his injured body up onto the roof. He has to clear away the heavy snow because it's literally threatening to collapse the cabin. But as he looks out across the valley, something unusual catches his eye. It's not just sunlight glaring off the snow. It's a distant reflection of metal. He grabs his binoculars and stares down. Far below, miles away, through the damaged forced road, a rescue vehicle is struggling through the terrain. They're far, but they are finally coming. Ethan doesn't hesitate for a second. He grabs every single emergency flare he has left and lights them all. Bright red smoke climbs high into the frozen gray sky, this massive beacon just screaming for help. He watches, and he waits. Hours pass. But the terrain is just too destroyed. The vehicle simply can't make it through. Slowly, agonizingly, darkness returns to the mountain. The red smoke clears. The rescue fails. I mean, the sheer despair of that moment, having salvation right in front of your eyes and watching it fade to black, it's almost unimaginable. But he survived that night. And the very next afternoon, he heard a sound that he hadn't heard in nearly a month. That steady, rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades. The sky had finally cleared up just enough. Ethan scrambled to drag his bright orange emergency panel out and spread it across the pristine white snow. The aircraft circled once, then again, and then, incredibly, the pilot finally spotted the panel. Now, the helicopter couldn't land right next to the cabin, so it touched down in a small clearing hundreds of yards away. Search and rescue teams immediately jumped out, literally wading through waist-deep snow to reach the lookout. When they finally got to his door, Ethan opened it. He was exhausted, battered, but he had this tired smile on his face. He looked right at them and joked, "You guys took your time." One of the rescuers just laughed, shook his head, and said, "We've been trying to reach you for almost a month." They wrapped him in warm blankets, finally pulling him back from the edge of oblivion. And our final section, section 5, the will to survive. As that helicopter lifted off, Ethan looked down at his snowy prison, and he realized something profound. True wilderness survival isn't actually about your physical strength. It is entirely about your mental willpower. It's that stubborn refusal to quit. It's about breaking an impossible task down into manageable pieces, right? Just enduring one more cold night, reaching one more sunrise. That sheer determination is what kept Ethan Cole alive when the rest of the world thought he was gone. Months later, when someone asked him why he would ever return to the mountains, Ethan said something incredible. He said, "The wilderness isn't trying to defeat us. It simply asks, how badly do you want to make it home?" So I want to leave you with this question to chew on. If the world forgot you tomorrow and you were trapped in the freezing silence, do you think you have the stubborn mental willpower to survive 30 days alone? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you the